Good morning and greetings to the dear educators. For today, I am here to oppose against today's motion that this House would decriminalize victimless crimes. So, I have collected a few arguments from the proposition team and I will try my best to oppose against this motion. Let's start things off. You say that victimless crimes do not harm others. And while that statement is usually true, it's actually been considered as misleading. Yes, they do not harm others directly except for the victims and the perpetrators who have consensually joined in the crimes. However, they actually have secondary effects on the communities, families, and to those who are vulnerable. Then, you have also said that rehabilitation works much more better than imprisonment because imprisonment or incarceration takes away all of the victim's social values, for example, their mental health. But if we do not give the victims or the perpetrators any prosecutions, chances are that the feelings where they were no longer motivated to do these crimes are only considered as ideal, and for people who will pick help over harm aren't always considered true, especially in the status quo right now. And I also have a few things in mind that I want to prove. That is, of course, the many cases of these crimes that still happen around in the status quo. Now let's take a look itself and how the world is right now and with these type of crimes. Well, sadly, even if there is such work of rehabilitation or other alternatives to imprisonment, there are still thousands, and I mean thousands, of these crimes involving gambling and drug addictions, or occasionally even drug dealings. Which kind of proves that even with the help of mechanisms aside from imprisonment itself can still lead into much, much worse conditions. Now, apparently, if we try to decriminalize these crimes entirely, they actually have their own negative impacts. And I think those impacts themselves can actually bring much more harm to society than bringing much more good. First of all, societal impacts. I have stated before that these crimes do not harm others directly, but they have secondary effects against others. And these secondary effects can actually increase much more drastically if they were only given a simple touch of psychological treatment. Because not everyone is considered as the same. You can't just give them a single session of therapy, sure, but does that always work? Not exactly. That's why it's always been considered that these type of psychological treatments and rehabilitation are always considered ideal. That's because that even with just these techniques, the cases of gambling, drug addictions still increase. And these crimes can actually still harm society, even if it doesn't harm them directly. For starters, drug dealings and the increase of drug usage can actually lead to overdoses and public health concerns. Then we also have gambling, which can actually increase financial problems to the families and the victims themselves, as well as decreasing productivity. And third, all of these types of crimes can actually link into other crime activities, or occasionally even to murder or manslaughter. Hence, even victimless crimes can also increase the crime rates. Second of all, if we would try to decriminalize these crimes totally, they can also create new enforcement challenges. governments and political and law organizations would actually have a much tougher time in managing the legal and illegal aspects of an activity consecutively. My points are exactly that if we try to remove the prosecutions and laws against these type of crimes, they can still have a major impact to us, our families, and also to the entirety of society. Just by looking in the status quo in Indonesia right now, there are still thousands of these crimes which involve helpless people who just want to escape their lives they want to escape from all of their life problems. But in reality, doing these type of crimes can sometimes also worsen your problems. So if there were no any charge against these type of crimes, people are still free to do these, which can actually harm themselves even much more worser. So that is why I am here today to oppose against this motion. Thank you.